The Justice League Unlimited is the flagship new title in DC's All-In initiative. It's the main book for the Prime universe in DC. But the advanced reader copy for retailers just dropped, and I got to read it. Here's everything you need to know about Justice League Unlimited. Before we get started, do me a big favor and do all the YouTube things. Like this, subscribe, hit that bell icon so you can hear about this and all these sorts of books whenever they come out. All right, let's get started. My name's Jason. I'm from the Multiverse. We're a comic shop in Hurst, Texas. And what I want to do is walk you through this new Justice League Unlimited book. Now, what I will not do is spoil it. This is no spoiler review, but it is a full review of the comic. Here's what you need to know. First, and most importantly, let's talk about the artist and the writer. The writer of this is Mark Waid, the artist, Dan Mora. Mark Waid is an extraordinary writer. He's great at digging deep into the DC lore, DC history, and pulling out really great nuggets, things that are super interesting and things that we really want to see. Dan Mora is a prolific artist right now. I don't know how he does it. When some artists seem to not be able to get out one book per month, Dan Mora is doing 2. He's got this book, and he's also doing the Superman book with one of my other favorite writers, Tom Taylor. So he's got 2 really important books within the DC universe right now, Justice League Unlimited and Superman. So he's doing a great job. One of the best artists in comics. This truly is the golden age. It's not bad. It's pretty good time to be reading comics. You get to read multiple things that you get illustrated by someone as good as Dan Mora. Now, these 2 have been on my favorite comic of the last couple of years, and that is Superman Batman World's Finest. That book has been the book that I pick up first whenever it comes out for at least a year, maybe 2. I have no idea. They've had some great stories going back to Kingdom Come, almost doing a prequel kind of thing for Kingdom Come in there. They explored some early parts of the character that we know and love, and Superman and Batman. Just done a great job. It has just been the most fun comic. What I'll say is it's not shaking the earth. It's not changing anyone's status quo, but it's a lot of fun to read. And it's so much fun to read that I read it first. It's the best thing that I get every single month. I'm very happy to see these 2 on Justice League Unlimited. Now, let's also give a little bit of history that brought us up to this. And I dig into this a little bit more when I talk about everything you need to know about DC's All-In initiative. And I'll link the video here for you to see that. But the Clip Notes version is this. When we left Dark Crisis, the very end of Dark Crisis, the Justice League had had enough. They had all died and been brought back. And that's got to be exhausting. They decided, we're ready for a break. We're not going to do the Justice League for a little while. Instead, Titans, you guys take over. You're going to be the premier team in the DC universe for the foreseeable future. And for the foreseeable future is until we reboot this thing. And that happened about a year later. So we've had Titans doing their thing. They had Beast Wars and a few other things along the way. And then we have Absolute Power. Absolute Power is another book written by our friend Mark Waid, drawn by our friend Dan Mora, and it was just extraordinary and a ton of fun. It dealt with misinformation and turning the public against people based on headlines and fake news, and ultimately resulted in our heroes losing their powers and then having to face down someone terrible. It's such a good book, tons of fun to read. The very end of that, we came to a conclusion, which was, and the thing relevant to this, if you want to see a little more detail, I do a full review of this piece over here. I'll link to that as well. But where we ended up was that we didn't have a Justice League. And if we had the Justice League, Amanda Waller, our big bad, could never have done the things that she did. And so what do we need? We need a Justice League again. And how are we going to do it? We're going to make them unlimited. So we have an unlimited Justice League. What exactly does an unlimited Justice League mean? Well, we got our first glimpse during the DC All In special. The front half of that book, I say front half, you could have read it either way, but half of the book was actually about the formation of this Justice League Unlimited. What they did is they said, right, we're going to go to everybody who's got powers or a fancy suit or is a really good detective with no face. We're going to go to all these people and we're going to make them all, everybody united as a Justice League. We're going to put them all under one command, under one group. We're going to organize our efforts as heroes in one big Justice League. And we're going to do that from space. And they built up a giant watchtower that some of the cool pre-Justice League Unlimited drawings, you basically can see this bigger than the moon because it's giant. It's a big watchtower. This watchtower has wings in it for each of the major families. There's a super family wing. There's a flash wing. There's a gold room. And the gold room is for the golden age heroes like the Justice Society. So we've got all these wings. The Titans have a secondary headquarters up there. So the Titans get to be there if they're not in Titan's Tower. So we have all these different spaces. I think there's a bat wing. If there's a bat wing, it's a little weird, but yeah, all the wings. We got all the wings. So they're up in the watchtower and they use boom tubes to transport to places where there's trouble. So they have a boom room, and the boom room is how all of our heroes gathered during the DC All In special, and they all came together to form this one Justice League Unlimited group. We're being held together by these special cards. You get a Justice League card, and from what I understand, that actually might be a promotional item where we'll be able to give out to people who come and get the Justice League Unlimited comic. We'll be able to give them their own Justice League membership card, which would be super cool. I really want that. So I'll dig into that more and I'll come back to you guys on that. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe, hit the bell, and then the next time when I happen to talk about those sorts of things, you'll see it. But I hope that's the case. So in the story, we pick up where we left off from the All In special. This story was super fun. We saw the formation of a couple of sub teams when new threats came up. So there was some underwater threat that came up, and you saw Aquaman and then a couple of other randos brought in to go and solve that underwater threat while we're being toured around. And we're seeing this all through the eyes of a new league member, someone who helped out in Absolute Power and is just arriving, doesn't quite know how he fits in this whole world, this guy named Airwave. And I don't know a lot about Airwave other than what I read in Absolute Power. So Airwave is our avatar. He's the guy who's being shown around the Watchtower, and he's our eyes and ears. They're explaining what all is there and how it all works. And one of our heroes who was severely injured or damaged during the Absolute Power story was Red Tornado, and he's acting as their active AI to help manage things. They talk about how they hand off missions to different groups, and they form different missions and mission groups based on the needs of that particular mission. So, right, I need a speedster to help save people, and I need a couple of powerhouses to fight the giant mech, and I need who knows what else you might need. I don't know. But they grab all these people. Oh, maybe some holding up debris. You need a lantern or something. So they form these groups based on the mission at hand. And it has some really cool, weird mixes of groups. You can see some of the covers they put out that one of the initial group that they send out has Star Sapphire on it with Black Lightning and a couple of the basics. Like you have a Flash, but it's not the main Flash. It's a different Flash. And you've got Superman and Wonder Woman in there. So you get a kind of a weird group there going out to save the day, but it's pretty fun. It's a really fun thing. And that's what I hope they get to do. I hope they get to spend a lot of time as this book goes on, trading out different mixes of characters and pulling in characters that we don't get to see very often. That's pretty fun. Like pulling in Star Sapphire and Black Lightning that I don't really read books with them very often, though Star Sapphire has been pretty good in Green Lantern lately. So if you haven't read that, check it out. Green Lantern 16 was a new story arc. Worth it. I'd pick that up. I just read 17 a little in advance. So Super good storyline. Saphire is starting to play a role there. All that to say, it's a good, fun book written by one of my favorite writers, drawn by the person who is probably my favorite artist in comics today. Just extraordinary work, absolutely beautiful work, and it is perfectly executed. Now, what we get in this, we get a nice tour, get a nice setup of what's happening. We do get one big fight with some heavy hitters, and then we get a little bit of a mystery. And there's a little bit of a mystery that shows up. Batman and Beetle show up and they're confronted with a mystery. I'm not exactly sure what they ran into. They showed in some panels, but I'm not sure exactly what that was. I couldn't fully decipher it. So we have Batman and Beetle out there trying to do something, and Batman calls in the cavalry. He goes, man, I need some heavy hitters here. You get Airwave, our avatar, our guide in the story. He got called in to save the day in a very unique way. He was sort of like, put me in, coach. And they were like, yeah, you turn into like radio waves. What are you going to do down there? There's a giant mechanical Uzi, what's it, that these other guys are fighting. What are you going to do? And we get to see him find a way to be useful in there. Just good stories, really good stories to start off with. We get introduced to a new big bad. We've got the biggest, baddest Justice League ever. They're organized, they're capable. Nobody's going to pull one over on them like Amanda Waller did again, but there might be a new big bad that's big and organized. What could that be like? It doesn't feel like our regular old Legion of Doom. It feels like something different. So we'll see what that looks like. Then we have a sinister plot that is uncovered. And it's a little disappointing, honestly. I didn't love the angle of the sinister plot and the betrayal that I think that they're going to ultimately reveal. I was just, I was disappointed in that. But, it wouldn't be a sinister plot if you were super happy that it was going on. So what are you going to do? Writing was excellent. Art was excellent. It's going to be a great foundational book. We're going to get to see lots of characters that we haven't seen in a long time, characters that we may not read them in their regular book all that often. In the background, you can see everybody. So if you look in the background of panels, I saw some Doom Patrol, I saw some JSA, I saw a couple of different lanterns walking through there. Martian Manhunter, who's not active in the story. I was wondering if he was going to be around because I hadn't seen him. He's definitely there in one of the backgrounds, kind of blurry, but you can tell it's him. So lots of that. Like you get glimpses of all these characters you really like. And I really, really like this story. I think it's going to be big. I think it ought to be the flagship for DC Comics. I really hope it is. It has so much promise. I'm so hopeful that this is going to be the best iteration of Justice League that we've seen in a long time. Now, my favorite Justice League is the JLA that was started way back with Grant Morrison. And I'm hoping that this is going to be just as awesome. And it's got all these cool characters. So what could go wrong, right? What could be better than having all these characters? All right. I'm pumped about this. You can pre-order this book right now. So go to your local comic shop, just say, hey, I want to add this to my pull list. Go do that. Time is running out for pre-ordering these books. If you don't have a local comic shop that you do this with, I would encourage you to come and shop with us. We'd love to be your online version of a local comic store and to your community for this as well. You can do that at multiverse.shop. I'll link it down here. Super easy to subscribe. It's 2 steps. I walk you through that right at the top of the page when you go there. But it's multiverse.shop for that. All right. Thank you so much. I look forward to talking to you more about these comics as they come out. It's such a great time to be reading DC Comics.